Now available in paperback and e-readers, Esteemed Season of the Witch Girl. The aspiring angel takes on a wicked teenage witch in this action-packed, all-new Esteemed series adventure. Pick up your copy of Esteemed Season of the Witch Girl in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers today. There are reports that the publishing industry has been having a hard time finding male writers to write in the genre of fantasy. And most of the bookstores these days only have fantasy books written by female authors, and many are wondering what happened to all the male authors of fantasy. Now, as a black man who has been writing fantasy ever since about 1999, I can tell you the real reason why there is a shortage of male writers in the fantasy genre, and it's not because there are passionate authors like myself who want to write in the genre. It's because many of the publishers and literary agents are basically run by women. Now, most of the publishing industry is run by white females, and many of these white females have been indoctrinated into feminism, and as they've been indoctrinated into feminism and they've gone to college, they have heard a lot of narratives about men oppressing women, and as they've come into the publishing industry, what they want to do is go out here and correct that whole situation, by mainly focusing on female writers and ignoring male writers like myself. And they think that by doing this, what they're going to do is make everything fair as related to the publishing industry. Unfortunately, what they have done is create a complete brick wall that keeps many male authors like myself from being able to come into the publishing marketplace and get our books published. And that's what I ran into back around 2006 when I went out here and looked to submit my book, The Temptation of John Haynes. Now, before that, I had actually submitted my book, Isis, in about 1999, 2000, and I got to deal with a lot of rejections, but I got to see the white female resistance back in 2006 when I went out here and started to submit The Temptation of John Haynes. Now, The Temptation of John Haynes was a fantasy book that dealt with the supernatural, and as I presented the story that presented a black male lead character who was involved with a black female lead character, this is where I ran into resistance from many of the white females who basically are in charge at the publishing industry. And as these white female editors and literary agents had to encounter a book that featured a black male antagonist from a black male writer, this is where I ran into a lot of hostility from many of these white female editors and white female literary agents. And that's what happens to many male writers out here who go out here and we write in the genre of fantasy. A lot of us have great stories like I did with The Temptation of John Haynes, and we can't get anybody to even take a look at our work because many of the women who control the publishing industry, the white women, they only want to see stories about white female heroines, like stories like Twilight or things like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or books like Harry Potter, which feature these neutered, emasculated males, and they don't really want to see a man be a one writing the stories because they think that men writing stories, again, is something that is about oppressing women. And some of these women want to go out here and think that men are going to present so-called sexist narratives related to women, and others think that if a man comes in and starts writing stories, he's somebody they can't really, again, control, because when it comes to men, we really push back from editorial as related to trying to change our stories. So a lot of these white women, they become extremely defensive when a man comes into the space of the genre of fantasy, and they become extremely defensive because they don't want to deal with a man, and they don't want to deal with a man presenting a story from his perspective. And that's one of the reasons why we don't see many male writers in traditional publishing. No, we don't see many male writers in traditional publishing anymore, because publishing basically has been taken over by white females. And many of these white females, they only want to publish stories that either are romances in fantasy or stories that feature girl bosses. They really don't want to go out here and write strong male leads. No, they don't want a story written by a man, because they think, oh, a man can't really give you a balanced picture. However, when it comes to many male writers like myself, we can go out here and give you a balanced picture, but we can't get in the door because many of the white females basically express their biases when they deal with the queries from authors like myself. Now, an author like myself, a black male writer, I've run into a lot of resistance from many of these white females, and as I ran into that resistance, I basically said that I had to throw up my hands as related to trying to get a book published through the traditional marketplace. I had to throw them up back as far as about 2007, and that again is something I had to do because I was dealing with women who were downright nasty when I submitted The Temptation of John Haynes, and didn't really want to again have that black male writer being in that space of fantasy, didn't want to have a black male writer in that space because they wanted to control the narrative, and they didn't want a black man to be the face of fantasy. No, they only want to have white women be the face of fantasy, and that's what many other men have run into. And as many men ran into this type of resistance, what we do is we just basically walk away from traditional publishing, and we start focusing on looking to get our own books out there on our own publishing imprints. And that's what I was forced to do back in 2009 when I started the SJS Direct imprint. Now, after publishing my first book, All About Marilyn, screenplay, I then focused on the fantasy genre with The Temptation of John Haynes, and I took the book straight to the marketplace, where I again ran into hostility from white women who wanted to put the first edition of The Temptation of John Haynes on a lousy book cover website, not understanding I didn't have much money to again be able to design a cover after paying a comic artist $400, and they messed up the cover. No, instead of looking to go talk to me, they decided to get nasty all around once again. And again, this nastiness from white women is one of the reasons why we don't have many male writers going to traditional publishing anymore. No, with many male fantasy writers, especially black male fantasy writers like myself, we basically walk away from traditional publishing, and we go out here and look to go out here and create our own books on our own publishing imprints using print-on-demand technology from places like Lightning Source or Amazon's KDP at this point. And we look to go out here and reach an audience directly, and that's what I do here on the SJS Direct imprint. I look to reach the customer directly with fantasy titles, and reach the audience directly with fantasy titles because I can't reach an audience over at places like these traditional publishers, because the white women, again, they really don't want to see a man, especially a black man, going out here and writing fantasy. No, they don't want us to imagine stories that have a black male lead. No, they don't want you to see a black man writing a story about black men. So what they do is, again, close us off, and we have to go, again, on the independent marketplace, and that's what I've been doing ever since 2011 with writing fantasy. I've been writing fantasy ever since about, again, 1999, so I've got over 20 plus years of experience, but I can't get in the door of one of these traditional publishers, even though I've got books that have gotten a lot of positive critical reviews because those same white women, while they didn't want to read The Temptation of John Haynes, many people went out here and bought The Temptation of John Haynes, and the book is critically acclaimed, especially with black audiences. A lot of black audiences love The Temptation of John Haynes. A lot of black people love this book, and even people overseas love this book. Again, this book had a strong foreign audience, and as time has gone on, I've gone on to write fantasy in the SJS Direct universe. I've been writing in the genre of fantasy, expanding from what I wrote and published in 2002 with ISIS to going out here and creating the SJS Direct universe, which features The Temptation of John Haynes. And I've expanded this into series of books such as the ISIS series, such as the Esteem series, such as the books like The Man Who Rules the World and the John Haynes series. And all of those books have been books that have gotten a lot of critical acclaim and have sold very well for me on the SJS Direct imprint for many years. But you won't hear anyone talk about a black male author like myself in traditional publishing circles. No, they won't talk about a black male author like myself because many of the people in the publishing industry, many of these white females, are extremely, again, jealous of straight black men, and many of these racists, again, don't want a black man in their circles because a black man telling stories that show stories about black people, and again, show black people in the fantasy genre, we basically, again, show that we can tell these stories and tell them very well. Now, many of these white females will also go on to say, oh, a man can't write women, and I basically shattered that narrative as related to things because I've been writing women for many years as related to narratives, and I've been writing women that people relate to, both men and women. And I remember in 2013, I had a reviewer on Amazon say they were surprised that a man could write women so well. And when I was on my book, The Thetas, which was a women's fiction book, again, I have been writing women for many years, writing balanced pictures of women, humanized pictures of women, but you can't get in the door to do that because, again, many of the white females, they'll go out here and think, oh, I'm being oppressed if a man comes into this space. But there are male writers, again, like myself, who have been writing fantasy for many years. Again, I have over about 50 titles I have written over the last, about 20 years. I mean, I've wrote over about 20 ISIS series books, about 15, 16 Esteem series books, almost 10 to 11 John Haynes books, and again, even wrote a whole comic, John Haynes at Death's Door. But people will say, oh, there are no male fantasy writers. No, male fantasy writers are not going to be at Barnes & Noble. No, we're not going to be on the bookstore shelves because white women keep us off the bookstore shelves. The white females who control the publishing industry keep us off the shelf. So if you want to get a fantasy book from a male author, you've got to head over to Amazon.com, where many of us male authors had to go publish our work. And that's where you're going to find the male authors of the fantasy genre. Male authors in the fantasy genre like myself. Again, we're building an audience online because we tried to go the traditional route, but it was just a waste of money and, more importantly, time. We lost a lot of time, and again, I lost a lot of time from about 1998 to about 2006, sending out these queries, sending out partials, sending out samples. I remember from my book, The Cassandra Cookbook, again, a chick lit book written by a man. Many of these people didn't want to take that book on, I believe, one, because it was written by a black man who was straight, and two, because, well, one of my best-selling author friends, who when she was alive, she told me that people didn't like the whole narrative as related to the alphabet male character. Again, they only want to see certain narratives as related to their stories. They don't want to see stories from a black man's perspective or a man's perspective at all. And they want to go out here and gatekeep the space of traditional publishing. gatekeep that space and keep male authors out of the space. That's what they want to do with this whole situation. But if you want to see fantasy written by male authors and black male authors, you can't go to traditional publishing. Again, what they put on traditional publishing is the view of a white female. And again, white females basically only want to see are these so-called feminist and girl boss narratives, and again want to see the strong women because they think women are the only ones that read. But from my personal experience, black men go out here and read fantasy. Black men go out here and read science fiction. I mean, my sales on John Haynes books shows that there is an audience for black fantasy with a black male lead. My sales on Esteem and ISIS series books shows that there's an audience, again, of men that like to read books about women. And again, I present balanced pictures. I mean, yeah, I may put a little cheesecake in there because you need cheesecake to sell. Again, I will put, again, a story together, but you have people in the publishing industry, these white females, who, again, talk about oppression, but ironically oppress male authors and keep us out of the space. And that's why a lot of us have moved on. And if you want our books are over at KDP on Kindle. They're available on other platforms like Draft Digital. And again, we build our own audience outside of the mainstream. Yeah, I would love to see one of my books be on the table of a Barnes & Noble or a shelf of a Barnes & Noble, but it's not possible at all because, again, you have these white female gatekeepers like you have right now. Even in the comic book industry, the white female gatekeepers keep many male authors out of the space, again, with their whole feminist narratives saying, oh, men are going to, again, present sexist images of women and, again, present degrading images of women. And I've never done that in any of my work. No, I've gone out here and again use revolving first-person perspective so that you can get a clear picture of people and get a picture and observe the entire situation and objectively look at that situation. But I could never get any of these people to be able to take a look at my fantasy work. No, I couldn't get them to take a look at my fantasy work, and now that's why I'm publishing my own on my own imprint, because I can't reach the marketplace. And many male authors, this is what they do, is they have to take their work in and publish it themselves because they can't go to a trade publisher anymore because the environment is so hostile. The environment has been hostile for, again, a good 20 plus years against male authors, and that's why you don't see many male authors in the fantasy genre at the bookstore, but you'll see them online. If you head over to Amazon.com, you'll see all my books on Amazon. You'll see many male authors on Amazon, and that's because we have gatekeepers, again, choking out the publishing industry, choking out creativity, and basically giving us a gynocentric view of fantasy that doesn't have any actual masculinity. Meanwhile, masculine male authors, we are on spaces like Amazon and many other places, again, getting our work to people and sharing it with the people all over the world, and people are enjoying that work. I mean, I just recently had a guy on Instagram tell me he picked up 2 of my books and enjoyed them, and that's what I've been encountering with people online, because I tried to go the traditional route, but the traditional route is one that no man can come in, especially a black man can come in. So we try to reach the customer, try to reach the reader. And again, if you want male fantasy written by black male authors like myself is available. There's a whole bunch of it out there, but you have to go out here and search for those books. Search for those books and build the word of mouth like I did online. I mean, I've been building the word of mouth and building anticipation. That's what I do here at the SJS Direct Imprint, again, all the time. And again, it's a long, tough road, but it's the road I have been on for the last 16 years. I've been on this road for over 16 years, reaching readers because I tried to go the traditional route, but you can't go open a door where that's been closed, so you just got to go another way. And that's what male authors are doing in the space of fantasy. We're telling our stories and reaching our readers, and we're reaching them on online platforms. And again, if you want fantasy written by a male author, you gotta go out here and head over to places like Amazon.com. That's where I have all my books in the ISIS series, the Steam series, the John Haynes series, and books like The Man Who Rules the World. And you can find all that great fantasy in paperback and Kindle format on Amazon.com. And you can also find it at other online booksellers like Draft to Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you want to help me be able to continue publishing fantasy and continuing to present fantasy from a black male perspective, you can also help out by dropping a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App. This is how I pay artists to do my covers. This is how I go out here and stay on the internet to promote my work on this channel. One of the reasons why I started this channel is because this is how I promote my work, because I don't get that support like the traditional publishing authors do. No, they go out here and they get support and promoted in these bookstores. They can do book signings, but I have to do everything online. And again, that takes money, and I've been doing this for over 16 years, and I hope to continue reaching readers all across the globe with books from a black male perspective in the genre of fantasy, and continuing to share that work with everyone all across the globe. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Coming to paperback and e-readers, Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer. Take a trip into the macabre world of goth modeling in the new millennium in this all-new Spinsterella story. Pre-order your copy of Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer at Amazon.com and other online booksellers everywhere. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, A Thorn in My Side. The Man Who Rules the World takes on an agent from the CIA from the Black Boule in this all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes' A Thorn in My Side in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.